In 1945, a Japanese soldier named Hiroo Onoda walked into the Philippine jungle and disappeared. He would not emerge for 29 years. Nearly 3 decades of surviving on coconuts, stolen rice, and rainwater. 3 decades of sleeping in caves, evading search parties, and enduring conditions that would break most people within weeks. When he finally surrendered in 1974, doctors examined him expecting to find a broken man. Instead, they found someone in remarkable physical condition, his body having somehow adapted to an existence that should have killed him dozens of times over. This wasn't a miracle. This was something far more unsettling. This was proof of what human beings are actually capable of when pushed beyond everything we consider normal. And here's what makes this truly disturbing. We've forgotten. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that our bodies were built for the impossible. We forgot that our ancestors routinely endured conditions that would send most of us to emergency rooms today. And buried deep within your biology, right now, are dormant systems waiting to be awakened. Systems that evolution spent millions of years perfecting. Systems designed for survival at the edge of death. For most of human history, comfort wasn't just rare, it didn't exist. Imagine waking up 200,000 years ago on the African savanna. There's no temperature control, no reliable food source, no certainty that you'll survive until sunset. Your ancient ancestors lived in a constant state of stress. They walked an average of 12 miles a day. They went days without eating. They slept exposed to predators. They endured temperatures that swung from scorching heat to bitter cold within hours. And here's what's remarkable. They didn't just survive these conditions. Their bodies transformed because of them. Every hardship triggered an internal adaptation. Every stressor activated ancient genetic programs designed to make them stronger, sharper, more resilient. This wasn't random. This was biology's most sophisticated training program, written into human DNA over countless generations. Modern science has a name for this phenomenon. It's called hormesis, and understanding it changes everything we think we know about stress, discomfort, and human potential. Hormesis is a biological principle that sounds almost paradoxical. Low to moderate doses of stress, the kind that would seem harmful, actually trigger beneficial responses in the body. Think of it like this. When you lift weights, you're technically damaging your muscle fibers. You're creating microscopic tears in the tissue, but your body responds by rebuilding those fibers stronger than before. This same principle applies to almost every system in your body. Cold exposure triggers the production of brown fat, a metabolically active tissue that burns calories and generates heat. Heat exposure activates heat shock proteins that repair cellular damage and protect against disease. Fasting triggers autophagy, a cellular cleaning process where your body literally consumes damaged components and recycles them into new, healthy cells. Your immune system, your cardiovascular system, your brain, all of them operate on this same principle. They require stress to stay strong. They require challenge to maintain function. And when that stress disappears, they begin to atrophy. Our ancestors didn't understand hormesis. They didn't need to. Their environment provided constant, unavoidable doses of beneficial stress. The cold triggered it. The heat triggered it. The hunger between successful hunts triggered it. The physical demands of daily survival triggered it. Their bodies existed in a perpetual state of adaptation, constantly rebuilding, constantly strengthening, constantly preparing for the next challenge. But something changed. Something profound shifted in the human experience, and the consequences are only now becoming visible. Consider what a typical day looks like for most people in the modern developed world. You wake up in a temperature-controlled room set to the exact degree of comfort. You eat food that required no hunting, no gathering, no physical effort whatsoever. You travel in climate-controlled vehicles to buildings with climate-controlled interiors. Your body temperature barely fluctuates. Your caloric needs are met with almost no physical expenditure. Your environment presents almost no meaningful physical challenges. From a biological perspective, your body exists in a state of profound confusion. It evolved over millions of years to expect stress. It developed sophisticated systems to respond to challenge. And suddenly, over the span of just a few generations, those challenges vanished. The result is something scientists are only beginning to fully understand. Without regular exposure to cold, your brown fat disappears. Without periods of fasting, your autophagy pathways become sluggish. Without physical challenge, your mitochondria, the power plants of your cells, become fewer and less efficient. Without exposure to pathogens and environmental stressors, your immune system becomes hypersensitive, attacking harmless substances and even your own tissues. There's a concept in engineering called redundancy. Critical systems are built with backup mechanisms. If one component fails, another takes over. Your body was designed with extraordinary redundancy. Multiple pathways to generate energy, multiple systems to fight infection, multiple mechanisms to heal from injury. But redundancy requires maintenance. It requires regular activation to remain functional. And in the absence of stress, these backup systems begin to disappear. We are becoming biologically fragile in ways our ancestors would find unimaginable. But there are people who never forgot. Cultures and individuals who, whether through tradition or circumstance, maintained the ancient practices of deliberate hardship. And studying them reveals something remarkable about hidden human potential. In the mountains of Tibet, monks have been documented raising their skin temperature through meditation alone. Wrapped in freezing wet sheets, they can generate enough internal heat to dry the fabric within minutes. Scientists measuring their physiology found that they could consciously control systems previously believed to be entirely automatic. Heart rate, blood pressure, core body temperature, all brought under voluntary control through decades of practice. In the frozen wilderness of Siberia, indigenous peoples like the Yakut have lived for generations in temperatures that would kill an unprepared person in minutes. Their bodies show measurable adaptations. Faster metabolic responses to cold, more efficient circulation to extremities, a remarkable tolerance for conditions that send most humans into hypothermic shock. These aren't genetic differences. Researchers found that when Yakut children are raised in warm climates, they lose these adaptations. The resilience is trained, not inherited. In the deserts of Africa, tribes like the Maasai have maintained traditions of extraordinary physical endurance. Young warriors once ran 50 miles or more during ceremonies. Their bodies developed cardiovascular efficiency that elite athletes in developed countries struggle to match. But the Maasai, who move to cities and adopt modern lifestyles, lose these capabilities within a single generation. The human body doesn't just adapt to stress, it adapts to its absence. And that adaptation is always toward weakness. Perhaps no modern example illustrates this better than the case of Wim Hof, the Dutch athlete who has broken records for cold exposure that seemed biologically impossible. He has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts. He has run marathons in the Arctic barefoot. He has sat submerged in ice for nearly 2 hours. When scientists first studied him, they assumed he was a genetic anomaly, some random mutation that made him resistant to cold in ways other humans couldn't replicate. But then he started teaching his methods to others, and within weeks, ordinary people with no special training began demonstrating the same impossible control over their autonomous nervous systems. Under laboratory conditions, practitioners of his technique were able to voluntarily influence their immune response. They could suppress inflammatory markers that doctors believed were entirely outside conscious control. The implications shook the medical establishment. If the immune system could be consciously influenced, what other automatic systems might respond to training? What other capabilities had we simply never thought to develop because we assumed they were impossible? The answer lies in neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself based on experience. For most of the 20th century, scientists believed the adult brain was essentially fixed, its structure determined in childhood, unchangeable thereafter. We now know this is completely wrong. The brain remains plastic throughout life. It constantly forms new neural connections based on what we repeatedly do, think, and experience. When you practice a skill, the neural pathways associated with that skill become stronger and more efficient. When you repeatedly expose yourself to a stressor, your brain literally restructures itself to better handle that stressor. This has profound implications for human potential. Consider pain tolerance. We typically think of pain as a fixed biological signal. Something hurts, or it doesn't. But research has shown that pain perception is extraordinarily malleable. Experienced practitioners of certain meditation traditions show dramatically altered brain activity when exposed to painful stimuli. The pain signal still reaches their brain. The neurons still fire. But somewhere between sensation and conscious experience, the signal is transformed. They can observe pain without suffering from it. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable neurology, and it can be trained. The same appears true for fear. Studies of elite soldiers, experienced firefighters, and other professionals who regularly face life-threatening situations show measurable changes in how their brains process threat. Their amygdala, the brain region associated with fear and emotional response, becomes less reactive over time. Not because they feel no fear, but because their brains have learned to regulate fear more efficiently. The stress response still activates, adrenaline still flows, but it serves them rather than overwhelming them. Ancient humans didn't have brain scanners or stress hormones measurements, but they understood something essential about human development. They understood that challenge builds capability. Almost every traditional culture developed rites of passage involving deliberate hardship. Young people were exposed to cold, heat, hunger, pain, and fear under controlled circumstances. They weren't being punished, they were being trained. Their bodies and minds were being given the stress they needed to develop adult resilience. We abandoned most of these practices in the name of progress and protection. We created lives of unprecedented comfort. And in doing so, we may have inadvertently deprived ourselves of the very experiences our biology requires to fully develop. There's something almost forbidden about this knowledge. It suggests that much of our modern suffering, the anxiety, the chronic illness, the psychological fragility, might be partly self-inflicted, not through anything we've done, but through what we've stopped doing. The human body evolved for challenges we no longer face, and in their absence, it turns against itself. Inflammation rises without pathogens to fight. Anxiety spikes without real threats to address. Energy plummets without physical demands to meet. The good news is that the ancient programming never disappeared. It's still there, written into your DNA, waiting to be activated. Research increasingly shows that even small, deliberate doses of hormetic stress can trigger remarkable adaptations. Brief cold exposure, occasional fasting, intense physical effort, even controlled breath work that temporarily stresses the system. These practices don't require retreating to the wilderness or abandoning modern life. They require only a willingness to step outside the narrow band of comfort we've constructed around ourselves. The Japanese have a concept called misogi, a ritual purification involving cold water immersion. In Finland, the tradition of sauna followed by ice swimming has persisted for centuries. In cultures around the world, practices of deliberate discomfort have survived despite every convenience modernity offers. Perhaps some part of collective human wisdom understood what we forgot. Perhaps there's an instinct, buried but still present, that knows we were meant for more than comfort. What makes this even more fascinating is the speed at which these adaptations can occur. Scientists once believed that meaningful biological change required generations, but emerging research suggests that significant adaptations can happen within weeks or even days. Your body is constantly listening to the signals you send it. Every cold shower tells your nervous system to prepare for harsh conditions. Every skipped meal reminds your metabolism that food isn't guaranteed. Every moment of exertion signals your mitochondria to multiply and grow stronger. The body doesn't wait for permission. It simply responds to the demands placed upon it. The question becomes not whether adaptation is possible, but what signals you're choosing to send. Hiru Onoda emerged from the Philippine jungle at 52 years old, having spent his prime years in conditions of unimaginable hardship. He lived until he was 91. In interviews, he spoke not of trauma but of what the jungle taught him about human capability. He had discovered, through necessity rather than choice, that the limits we accept are not the limits that exist. He had learned that the human body, when forced to adapt, is capable of things that seem impossible from the comfort of civilization. You carry the same ancient hardware, the same adaptable biology, the same dormant potential. The question isn't whether you're capable of more than you imagine. Evolution already answered that. The question is what you'll do with the knowledge that comfort has a price, and that within every hardship you choose to face lies the potential for a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. Your ancestors survived ice ages, famines, predators, and conditions that would seem apocalyptic by modern standards. Their blood still flows in your veins. Their strength still sleeps in your cells. Maybe it's time to wake it up.